My BFF is abusing her husband and I don't know what to do. I know this is really long but please bear with me. I want to make sure I have all the important details stated. Cast is me, F, 28, my BFF Sandy, F, 27, my husband Daniel, M, 27, and Sandy's husband Patrick, M, 27. Names have been changed for privacy. My husband and I have been married 3 years, together for 13. Sandy and Patrick have been married for 5 years, together for 8. Sandy and I have been friends for roughly 7 years now. We met working in the same retail store and got really close really fast and quickly introduced our husbands to each other, who also instantly clicked and became BFFs. The 4 of us did absolutely everything together and even started referring to each other as sister wives and brother husbands. We even started going on vacations together and eventually started spending time/holidays with each other's families. Some background: Sandy absolutely despises Patrick's parents because before they got married they had asked Patrick if he was sure she was the one for him because Sandy didn't want to have kids and he did. He assured them he was willing to make that sacrifice but also told Sandy what they had said, which made her furious. He says that's the biggest mistake of his life. She completely cut them out of her life after that, even though they have since apologized several times, but she refuses to even think about letting it go and constantly talks horribly about them. It obviously really hurts Patrick that his wife and family don't have a relationship, but has tried his best to maintain his marriage as well as his relationship with his parents. Daniel will sometimes go shooting with Patrick on his parents' land, so naturally, and because of the nature of our friendship, he has Patrick's parents' phone numbers and is pretty friendly with them. Anyway, over the past 3 or so years of our friendship, Daniel and I have noticed Sandy becoming more and more hostile toward Patrick, snapping at him in conversation over the smallest things, calling him derogatory names, giving him the silent treatment while playing board games if he's beating her, just stupid stuff like that. Sometimes it even turns into a full-blown tantrum where she screams at him if he does or says something she doesn't like. Sandy has always been a really blunt and quick-tempered person. Patrick is not a confrontational person, and whenever she gets like this he just goes quiet to try to avoid a further argument. It makes both me and Daniel really uncomfortable when this happens, which is becoming more and more frequent as time goes on. At this point at least once a night, and Daniel has started to get really angry with her for talking to his BFF the way she does. The boys play a lot of video games together and that basically is like a therapy session for Patrick where he tells Daniel all the things his wife has done and how she makes him feel, etc. Because of this, Daniel has started getting snippy with Sandy whenever we're hanging out and she starts getting into one of her moods. At first she kinda brushed it off like he was playing, but I could tell she was getting more and more agitated as time went on. I've tried talking to Sandy on a couple occasions about how she's too aggressive, not necessarily with Patrick, but even mutual friends sometimes, and she acknowledged that it was something she would work on, but things never changed for long. The issue: in the past couple of weeks Patrick has been having health issues and recently was sent to the ER. While there, his mom texted Daniel to check up on him because Patrick hadn't told her what was going on. Sandy came over while Patrick was still in the hospital and Daniel offhandedly mentioned to me that Patrick's mum had texted him. Sandy visibly got upset by this news and bluntly told Daniel that she didn't like that she had his number or that they even talked because his parents were bad people and he should hate them on her behalf. Daniel just looked at her and told her they were always nice to him, so he had no reason to hate them. She seemed to brush it off and we hung out like normal, but apparently it really bothered her what he said and she eventually confided in me that she felt like her feelings were dismissed. I mentioned to Daniel how she was feeling and we discussed that if she brought it up with him we would let her know how we were feeling about the way she acts. Patrick got released from the hospital and a day or so later we all sit down to talk. Sandy immediately starts crying and telling Daniel that she was hurt by his dismissive attitude and he genuinely apologized for how he handled that particular situation. He really did feel like in that instance he had crossed the line. However, things took a turn when he told her the reason why he reacted the way he did. He said he cared about Patrick a lot and didn't like the way she spoke to him or treated him. She freaked out and said he had no place to tell her how to speak to her husband and that it wasn't his relationship. Keep in mind Patrick and I were in the room while this conversation was happening and he didn't say anything. Daniel agreed that it wasn't his relationship but just repeated that he cared about Patrick and that was his reasoning. Patrick ended up leaving the room and I followed while Sandy and Daniel kept talking and he just looked defeated and said he didn't know what to do. I asked him why he didn't say anything and he said Sandy had told him she wanted to handle the situation on her own, but he insisted he was in the room to hear both sides of the story. While we were talking, Sandy texted Patrick and told him she was waiting in the car, so he left. I asked Daniel what happened and he actually broke down and told me he didn't know what was going to happen to the relationship between them at this point. He was scared she was going to make Patrick stop being friends with him. She's done this in the past with other friends of his she didn't like. I don't know what to do at this point. It's been almost a week since this happened and there hasn't been much contact between the four of us. She even deleted herself from the group chat the four of us plus a couple other friends were in. Her and I have communicated a little over social media but nothing of significance. Daniel and Patrick have texted a couple times and played a little bit of video games together, but the one time she saw him playing with Daniel he immediately got off. I'd really like advice on how to salvage the relationship if possible, mostly for Daniel and Patrick's sake. How do I get Sandy to listen and take some accountability without making her feel attacked? I want my old friend back and I really do want both of them to be happy again, whether it's together or separate, but I also don't want to enable her behavior anymore. I've talked to a couple of mutual friends about the situation and have seen her when she gets in one of her moods and they agree with Daniel and I, and even confided that they've thought about dropping her as a friend because of her temper. I mean, Sandy sounds horrible. You mention that she is rude to more than just her husband. I wouldn't want to be friends with someone so rude and oblivious to other people's feelings. When I was 19-20 I hung out with a girl like that, always rude and starting things, and our boyfriends were close. They were our close couple friends for a bit. I learned very quickly that the people like that only invites drama and negativity in my life. So I stopped hanging out with her and it did unfortunately affect my boyfriend's relationship with his friend and we all stopped having contact with each other. That is until the guy caught her cheating and decided he could better and left her. We've seen him a couple times since we are back in town and he is so much better off without her. Don't keep Sandy in your life just to have access to Patrick. It isn't worth it. Just let Patrick know that the door is always open if he wants to hang, but you don't want someone as negative as Sandy around. And honestly, if my husband was best friends with someone so horrible, I would start to question what about that person is appealing to my husband, that he would continuously turn a blind eye to their bad behavior and continue being friends with them. The unfortunate reality is that Sandy is never going to listen to you, because Patrick is never going to leave no matter what happens. My first thought after you mentioning the parents was that Patrick is incredibly insecure, and is just so happy to be in a relationship that he'll deal with any abuse thrown his way just so that he won't be alone. It's a really sad situation. His parents were right to voice their concerns. It's an incredibly common deal breaker. Ultimately, Patrick is willing to give up what he wants though, because again, he doesn't want to lose someone. But if you reach out to Sandy, she's just going to get him to cut you out of his life. You have one play, unfortunately. Point out all of your concerns to Patrick, and even bring up the idea of leaving, but only do it once. Ultimately, he's going to have to make his own mistakes. Good luck. That is what I'm most afraid of, is Patrick being isolated. I would make it clear to Patrick that if he needs anything, you'll be there to support him. Maybe he'll need a place to stay if he leaves her and you have a couch or spare room he could stay at. I think if you keep making your support for him known, that can be the greatest help. I know it can feel like if you leave an abusive person, you'll suddenly have no one. Make sure he understands this friendship is with or without her. Keep being in contact with him as mentioned above. Don't confront Sandy at all. She made Patrick drop his own family at the slightest questioning of her. She'll drop you too, and he'll just be more isolated. Abusive relationships can't be mediated. Even couples counseling is not recommended in abusive relationships. The abused makes themselves more vulnerable and the abuser just picks up more tools. Therapists are often not trained to spot the signs of domestic abuse and unwittingly make it worse. All you can do is support him. It will take him forever to decide to leave. If he ever does, let him know that what is happening to him is not okay. and you'll be there for him. My biggest fear is Patrick being isolated because of all this. Honestly, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't even want to stay friends with her anymore. What to do? He told me to not be close with my parents. I told him not to project his dead parents onto me. Today during an argument, my boyfriend said that I was too close to my mom, that I should not talk to her often and she shouldn't be one of my best friends. In response, I asked him what is different about his brother calling 3-4x a day, and that just because his parents are deceased and he never had an adult relationship with them, he should project that onto me and my family. They have welcomed him fully, inviting him to come stay with them and buying all his favorites before visits and asking about him daily. I was hurt, but I know that my comment could be taken in a bad way by him. I apologized profusely and he told me to go away. Think about why he might have said it. Is your mum influencing you in a way he doesn't like? Are you talking about relationship private matters to your parents? Is he jealous? Does he just not understand an adult child-parent relationship? Is he being a controlling asshat? The answer to why he feels that way will determine your best course of action. Be careful. That is a bit of a controlling behavior. You should never lose that closeness that you have with your mom. A slightly controversial opinion here: family is there to protect you and be with you. Your mom is family, but your boyfriend isn't yet. Your mom won't leave you, but he might. No partner should control another's relationship with their family. However, I have some questions to clarify what is happening. Do you talk about your relationship problems with your mother first, get her advice and come back with influence of your decisions on the relationship? Is there any boundary issues between you and your mom that is verging on codependency? What were you arguing about and how did your mom come up in the argument? Is this the first time he has talked about someone you are close to having too much access to you? Do you have close friends besides your mother in your life? The answers to those questions can provide more context to understand what is happening here. In addition, your response is incredibly harmful to him. You threw the loss of his family in his face. I know my comment could be taken in a bad way by him is not a recognition that it is actually a pretty barbed comment intent to hurt someone. It's not an excuse that you were hurt, therefore you get to use his loss against him as a weapon. If your BF is feeling hurt because you have a good and wholesome relationship with your mom and both his parents are gone, the way of dealing with that is to talk about it when you are both calm and help him sit with his pain, and for you to honor that though he loves and is loved by your family, that love also comes with the pain of loss. The way this was done is just all anger and venom. Y'all might both need your own therapists separately to deal with your own stuff before trying to be mature in a relationship. You both suck in this situation. Like, why doesn't he like you being close with your mum? Why is it okay his brother calls 3 to 4 times a day, but your mom is different? But at the same time, what the actual fuck? Why would you ever throw his dead parents in his face like that, during an argument? Like, sure, maybe you have a point and he just doesn't understand parent/children relationships. That's totally possible. But to bring it up in the heat of the moment is low. My M22, GFF 21, is forcing her way to marriage. The title pretty much says it all. My girlfriend wants us to get married, after 6 months. Even I have been saying I'm not someone that rushes into marriage at young age. She just says there is no reason to wait for it because she is 100% sure about it. When I say I need more time, she wants to know why, and each argument, mainly the fact we're just teenagers, both in college and we literally only dated for 6 months. She just has an answer ready for it. I've never been a good debater, but she just doesn't want to hear any of it. She just says I need to make up my mind and she's not going to wait forever. When I didn't go in on that statement, she switched back to the "but I want to be together all the time. Don't you want to live together? Don't you love me, or does marriage with me look that bad to you?" arguments. I honestly don't know what to tell or think anymore. Why can't she just accept it? She told me we should continue the conversation later when I've thought more about the situation and am less vague about it.